Picking up from my first video, I wanted to continue the series with my review of Aliens. Now, Aliens originally was a movie that I watched months after the first Alien, which probably wasn't the best idea because I had forgotten some of the elements that could have really made the movie even more impactful for me with just how it ties into the original and how it builds off of it. But in the last couple of weeks, I watched them within a very short time span of each other, and I think that I can fairly review it now. Now, Aliens picks up like decades later after the first movie, where Ellen Ripley shockingly is revealed to her that she has been in hypersleep for decades, and she's found by Weyland-Yutani Company, and they learn soon that there's a space colony on LV-426 that they lose contact with, and while Ellen Ripley was reluctant to go to that planet beforehand, she agrees to go after they lose contact with them, and that's kind of where the plot starts. Now, I will always be Team Alien over Aliens, which is crazy to say because Aliens is still one of my favorite movies of all time. Just the way that they kind of change the formula but keep the same horror, and it makes for an incredibly impactful sequel, and in my opinion, one of the best sequels probably ever made. It still doesn't top the original, like I said, but I think it is one of the strongest sequels out there. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's my favorite James Cameron movie, even over the two Terminator movies. And I think that it is one of the best uses of action, humor, and horror in a movie out there. Just the way it balances all of that is like brilliant to me. Like, I don't understand how you can go over the top and campy but make it absolutely intense and often like heart-pounding horror movie. Now, while I'm definitely Team Alien over Aliens, I certainly see why people are Team Aliens over Alien, because it's much more fast-paced and action-oriented, and even though it's like 30 minutes longer, it feels almost shorter than the first movie, which is crazy to me, and just has more character depth and stakes, and it's a much more grand movie overall. They had a bigger budget, so they were able to do more, and just brilliant directing from James Cameron here is really outstanding. Now, I mentioned that this movie has more character depth, and that's certainly what Aliens does better than Alien, no question. Ellen Ripley has much more character depth. She's not just the would-be final girl, and she gets this arc in the movie where she kind of finds this girl, and this little girl, and kind of becomes a mother to her, and that's where you see the other side of her. She's not just this, outspoken and like stubborn person. She's a loving and caring person who really looks after her people, and that's what you really get from this movie, is that just motherly sense to her, and it just adds a whole new layer to her character that wasn't in the previous movie at all. Another thing that this movie does better is it's a lot more thrilling, actually. The pulse rifles are the things that stick out to me, or the trackers, whatever they're called. Just the noises, the way they use sound, the way that they build up the aliens kind of coming into where they're at. Like, they can't find them oftentimes, and they're there, and there are tons of them there, hence the title. And it just makes for an effective, again, heart-pounding thriller that is more intense than the original. The original, I said plenty of times, is a more dread-filled horror movie. This is definitely a more heart-pounding thriller type of horror movie. It almost is more of a thriller, but there are definitely elements that make it a horror movie, like indefinitely. The visual effects are also outstanding, just like the original. They age completely well. The miniature models, everything. And this time it's more aliens, so there's more to do, and you see a lot more of the aliens this time. They're not like behind the curtain like they were in the first movie. And the way they move is, while it's definitely, you could see it being a limitation on just the filmmaking, but to me, I think the way that they move around, it just makes them even more creepy and unsettling, and makes them more terrifying and intimidating. I'm also a big fan of our new characters here. We have Newt, Corporal Hicks, and then Private Hudson being the standouts, but also I'm a big fan of Bishop and kind of the secret side to him that's revealed early on, and the way that they do that is just was an incredibly clever idea to spin off of the first movie, because you go in with certain expectations and they kind of completely change your expectations with the character of Bishop. Can't forget to mention the new lore here. What they do with the aliens, like figuring out new stuff about them and the planet and what's really been going on. Obviously, they add on to that in Ridley Scott's very controversial Prometheus and Alien Covenant, but what they do here to add to the aliens and their species and how they work and stuff is extremely interesting and a very well written and brilliant way to add on to the first movie. And there's the third act, which is probably the most controversial part of the movie, but for me it completely works simply because it's a lot more character oriented and the stakes are higher than the first movie. It just builds on the characters in a very satisfying way and it ends their arcs on a very satisfying way, and it has plenty of shocks and surprises just like the first movie that kind of come out of nowhere that you just don't expect at all. And I wouldn't say it's as intense as the third act in the first movie, but it's still, again, extremely effective and extremely intense. Now for the mixed stuff, really all I have is the third act. For me it works, but for a lot of people I know, it definitely is a bit controversial because of how derivative it is of the first movie. It's very different in terms of the way it feels, but the plot structure of it is very, very, very similar, and it definitely kind of just copies off of it in a lot of ways, especially with the surprising moments. And but I still think it's effective because it's more character oriented, like I said, and it's really just a kind of a nitpick, to be honest. Now for my negatives, again, I really only have one, but it definitely is something that holds the movie back quite a bit for me, and it has to do with the campiness of the movie. And what I'm referencing in particular is the characters. Some of them are, I like most of them, but some of them are a little bit over, or way too over the top and obnoxious. Particularly Vasquez. She's kind of just a, I don't know, cocky and annoying character that has always really bugged me every time I've watched the movie. I don't know, it's just something about her irritates me, and she's just a bit of a frustrating character. Everyone else is fine, including Bill Paxton. I really like him, like I said before. I think most of the campy characters work, but again, Vasquez is just, I know it's weird to say one character is the negative of the movie, but for me, she's always been the main factor of why I think this movie isn't as good as it could be, just because of her. For the content of this movie, it definitely warrants its R rating, absolutely no question. It's extremely intense, arguably, or to me, even more intense than the first movie, and for the language, there's a lot more language. Plenty of F-bombs in this movie, particularly by Bill Paxton. And sex and nudity, there isn't really too much of anything that I can remember, except for maybe some, like, questionable shot choices, just the way the camera is framed. But other than that, not really anything. And then for violence and gore, this is maybe not as gory as the first movie, but it's very close. So overall, guys, yeah, Aliens is still one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and still up there on my favorite movies list. If you want to check out my review for the original Alien, I have a link for it in the description, or I'll put it up in the video, and I also put a link up to the tier ranking I just did of the horror movies that I've seen. It's spooky season, so I just thought I'd make a horror movie tier list, even though I haven't seen that many movies. So if you want to check that out, I'll also have that both up in the video and linked in the description. So hope to see you in the next video. Hope to continue improving. And yeah.